make you different to everybody else. So there's people who do care about their footprint. You know, they want eco-friendly herbicides and pesticides, so organics and your battery power. So there is a marketplace there. It's trying to find that marketplace. Yes, you could probably charge a little bit more for it, but there is a market there, and it makes you stand out and different. You want to put a few different things on saying what you do. But yeah, moving forward, battery, we're using a little bit high, very high-end battery, expensive, but it works great.
Another question from Mike, from Brad. What portion of your profits did you put aside to build equity when you started to grow your business?
To build equity?
Yeah, that's the question.
I need more information. What does he mean by build equity? Because
maybe you want to put in there, Brad, what do you mean by more equity? But,
yeah, because technically cash on a balance sheet is piece of equity. So you can either do retained earnings on a balance sheet and keep the money inside the company, or you're going to use that and deploy that capital to probably grow more in terms of marketing or hiring or equipment, etc.
So it says to afford new equipment, new trailer.
So read the question again, sorry.
So what portion of your profit did you put aside?
Got it. Zero. So what I would do, what we personally did when you're trying to maximize growth is I'm simply looking at my personal finances and how little can I take out of the business. Every single other dollar of profit is going to stay in the company and be used towards buying more trucks, marketing, hiring, and that's just a personal preference. And that was because my goal was to grow really fast. I think if you're going to be more conservative with your growth pattern, it's like, how fast do I need to grow? When do I need to buy trucks? Because you can just simply, like the capacity thing we used this morning, if your goal is 100,000 a month, okay, great. You're going to need 6 trucks and you're going to need 9 employees. You're in order to get to that goal. So you can just run the math on that. And then it's just a matter of how fast you want to get there, and are you willing to sacrifice the profits outside your pocket and into the business. So, and honestly, that comes down to the tax thing too. That's why you hire people like her.
Donna.
Yeah.
So my question is sort of 2 parts. So would it be right to say that you basically reverse engineered where you saw yourself and worked backwards from that?
Yeah, I think everyone should do that. They shouldn't listen to someone like me like, oh, I should grow my business. I think it's a stupid thing to do. And I'm afraid of that, honestly, like sharing my stuff publicly online and stuff. Everyone's like, oh, I got to grow $1 million business. When I honestly believe that probably less than 20% of business owners should do that, because it's just, like we talked about this morning, a different level of stress that they should not be tampering with. So for me personally, yeah, I work backwards, right? Like, how big of a business am I going to build? How many trucks do I need to have? How many employees does that mean I need to have? And then how much can I afford every year to put towards that? So that's where you can just, it's like even the battery versus fuel equation, I'm the worst person in the world to ask it, because I literally will say like flip a coin. Because it doesn't matter. It's the numbers. Ultimately, the customer needs their grass cut, right? And most customers aren't willing to pay a whole lot more for the little things that we think are a big deal. They just want their grass cut. They want it done right. They want a high level of professionalism, and I can deliver that product. So I'm much more numbers driven. I'm super unemotional about what type of equipment we use. I have no idea what type of equipment we use at like our shops. I tell our guys, like, just find a good dealer that's going to service you well, especially if you're stupid like me and don't even know what a carburetor is. Like, then you need to have someone smarter than you.
That's right, mate. I don't either.
Yeah. So.
Neither do I. Okay. And so the second part of my question, I just, with the population in the US, obviously it's a lot bigger, so you have a lot more employees to pick and choose from. How do you see that as the difference between Australia, where we don't, and I find that it's difficult to put on good employees when I go here, where I want enough business to go to, compared to the US?
Yeah, questions about US versus Australia's market. So first and foremost, we have 600,000 landscapers in the United States. So per capita, we actually have a less concentration than you all. So if you think, oh, it's you have more employees and laborers over there, we have a higher concentration of landscapers than compared to here, mostly due to the Hispanic population and Mexicans that do this for cheap all over the place. So I wouldn't look at competition. Again, is something I do not look at. If you're in a market where there's lots of competition, I feel like you're right. It's the best place to be, because it means that there's a market for it, and then you just got to figure out differentiation. How do you make yourself different than the other 500 guys in your local market. In terms of employees, our average cost of living is lower. So there's a slight advantage there, but it's the same thing as here. It's the exact same stuff. Like, no one wants to work outside. Young people aren't interested in the trades. Everyone's being pushed towards college and tech and things like that. And so it's a matter of making it a place where when someone starts, they see a very clear path to grow inside your company. If you're just offering a frontline position, not super attractive if someone's comparing it against Apple or Google, right? But if I can say, hey, look, you're going to start at $15, $20, $25 an hour. Okay, great. Here's the steps. We're going to give you like the 3 years path. You're going to become a manager, an estimator. You can start your own business. And outside of that, go get something else. Go get another job. And so we really push that hard because we aren't buying this notion like we're going to keep people for 10 years. It's just not realistic in this industry. So.
Sorry, just for the whole panel, I guess. How do you guys go about making sure that you've trained people adequately and covered yourself from a legal standpoint in terms of putting people on as employees? I know Jim talked.
She might be the best for that one.
I mean, Jim talked at the start about having a registered training office here and running programs and stuff like that. But until that's sort of an option for us, how would you guys go about doing that?
Questions about training people.
Yeah, I'll take that. So if you don't feel confident that you can itemise the word I'm looking for is like a description or training for a specific each task is what I was thinking of. If you don't feel confident you can break that down and then mitigate the risks involved in that, there are companies out there that will basically create a document for every single task that you have within your business, and to the point where, they'll do all your contracts and the documents that you would then take your new employees through to make sure that they understand it, they sign off that they understand that task, and which will then cover you. So there is a lot of employment companies out there, like HR companies, that will help you do that. You got to pay for it.
I might just add to that a little bit about what I did. I was from McDonald's before I came here, and at McDonald's we had performance reviews yearly, but we also had this thing called TMS catch-ups, which we did every 3 months to make sure that the performance level of our employees is where it needs to be, and they're getting trained to the certain standard. And then you'd come back 3 months later and you'd do the review, and you'd say, hey, are you at this point yet? This is where we said you would be at. And so in my business, I put that in place. And so I do TMS catch-ups in my business as well as performance reviews. And so what I'll do is I'll say, all right now you're at this point. In 3 months, you should be an expert to be able to mow a lawn. And then what I'll do is I'll make sure I'll go out with them and make sure that they can mow a lawn efficiently to an expert level and do it obviously safely. Obviously, I provide all the PPE, uniforms, all the rest of it. And then I'll do that as they progress through the ranks. So I do, every 3 months I do a catch up with them.
And do you document all that?
Yeah, it's all written. Yeah, and it goes into their file. So I've got a file in the office. So every team has catch up and performance review is we have exactly a description of what we've talked about and what we've evaluated them on.
Yeah, I saw you mentioned, Dan, you use metrics or KPIs for your people. Can you tell us a bit more about those?
Yeah. Okay. So the question there is, can you tell me a bit more about the metrics or KPIs and how I evaluate with KPIs? So again, this is something that I brought from McDonald's. So we had something called sales per crew hour. So at McDonald's, sales per crew hour, we wanted to run at 120 sales per person on the floor. And so it's exactly the same thing. The whole reason this $2 a minute thing came about was because I wanted to achieve $120 an hour per employee, the same way that McDonald's did. So I would quote for that for how I could do the job, and then see if my staff could do it. And then I got to the point where I was quicker than that, and I was able to do regular jobs at $2.50 a minute. and then my staff should get to the point where they can at least do it at $2 a minute. So that was one of the KPIs that I had there. Another one is I had when at McDonald's they have reaction times. So you've got to put the bun in the toaster in a certain amount of time. You got to have you get the bun out of the trolley and put it into the toaster within 5 seconds. So what I did is I went, all right, well you've got to get out of the car and grab the brush cutter from the back of the car within 5 seconds. So you'd pull up, park on, handbrake, keys out, jump out, try and grab the brush cutter. And so you try and do it within 5 seconds, so you're not sitting in the car. And the whole point was to alleviate people looking at their social media while they're still in the car or still playing their Pokemon. So, those were a few things that I did, yeah.
Jim was mentioning the RTO. Is there a dog grooming apprenticeship?
It hasn't started yet.
Courses as such, but
They'll try and do every course they can if possible.
Yes.
And it will-
The fencing and stuff is first, but they're going to try and do as many as possible.
and it will be a full-on apprenticeship, like whatever.
Well, I don't know exactly what the course makeup is for the RTO for that for dog grooming exactly. But if there's a course they can tailor from, they can actually get registered and buy the shirt or whatever they do, they will do it. That's the plan.
If I could just add about the KPIs real quick, for everyone, just to have an actual number, like a quick one. I know we talked about the budget hours versus clocked hours before, but an easier number for everyone, so in case you don't use budget hours, would just be total revenue for that employee divided by their clocked hours for that day. That's going to give you an effective hourly rate, and if you track that over time, you'll get the average for a team member and see who's highest and lowest performing. That's just like the easiest trackable, because it includes drive time, includes unload time. It doesn't just include the dollar per minute on the job site.
I've got a question for Donna from online. Brad, do you have any advice or information for someone looking into sponsorships, additional costs to employment responsibility?
So does he mean sponsorship for overseas employees?
I would say that's the question now. I think yes.
Yeah, no, not. They have changed that. It's a quite a timely process to get through. I've got one client currently going through that and has been doing it so far all this year, and has outlaid probably close to $15,000 and still doesn't have that employee here. So it is a very expensive way of doing it. And I feel like there's probably better ways in order to get an employee. Much cheaper options out there still.
Question for you, Dan and John. Like with mowing, I've known most franchisees businesses. So, like yourself, John, you went to 8 employees, or what was your max? Dan would have been similar, 8. What stopped you from going further, let's say to 20 or to 15? Because I've never heard of a mowing franchisee having, let's say, 12 or more. Was it just you didn't want the headaches, or why didn't you go?
Okay, we did go a little bit higher late last year, but we found that the clients that we were attracting probably weren't fitting our brief. They were a bit low and we needed a bit more dollars, so we had to split those customers off and we dropped it back down a bit. We couldn't find enough commercial or the more profitable type job or the bigger job. Moving to too many houses wasn't for us, so we found that we just scaled the business back a bit. That's not to say that now we've developed some other stuff that we may actually increase it a bit again, but I do have a franchise region to look after now, so I'm not trying to grow my business too much more. I can't. It's only so much I can do.
For me on that, so what was stopping me or what was slowing me down? Nothing. I could have kept going. Well and truly could have kept going with the system that I had, where I'd bring on 80 new regular customers and put another employee on to look after those customers. So I decided to stop myself. I was getting to the point where we were doing $24,000 weeks towards the end. I decided to stop myself because I could see that my 2 daughters had more of a connection with my wife than what they did me, and I wanted to be able to spend more time with my 2 girls. So, once they grow up, who knows, I might go do it again and go even bigger. But there was nothing at all. I could have kept going.
And like when we look at a lot of companies when they grow really quickly, set 600,000. I don't know where you guys are in terms of revenue, but like that's a very natural stopping point for growth a lot of times, and a good place to stop, because when you start getting above 8-10 employees, like if you just look at like the military, et cetera, they won't have more than 8 to 10 people reporting to one person. And so when you get that many employees reporting to one person, you almost start needing another admin or non-revenue producing employee to be in the business if you're going to scale past that. So we like encourage our franchisees, if you're going to go above 800,000, you almost have to go to like 1.5 to make it worth it. Because if I'm going to go hire someone for, let's say, $100,000 a year on salary, because they're a general manager, high level type position, well, if I'm running a 20% margin business, I need to produce 500,000 in revenue just to cover their wages. So if I'm going to go up to 800,000 in revenue, managing up myself, but if I'm going to go get beyond that, typically I need another person, and they're going to be a high level general manager. I'm going to pay them 100 grand. Great. You're going to have to grow to 1.3 before you make a single extra dollar in profit. And so that's something that we see as a natural stopping point for us, for one person to be able to manage.
Well, so the other question I had was about, you said, our service codes, Mike had you couldn't believe the amount of service codes we did. So do you think a franchisee could scale quicker if they just, let's say, cut back to 3 or 4 service codes only? If someone says, can you do this? They say, no, we can't do it. Or is that sort of a barrier to scale you see from just having all that amount of services?
Yeah, so if you want to scale fast, adding services is the way to do it, right? The more service you offer, the more revenue you can do. And especially in gyms, because you all don't do as much of your own marketing. If you were saying, hey, you're driving all of your marketing, and then I would say just focus on one service, because all your marketing dollars can go towards that one thing and you can specialize in it. But I would say if you're trying to grow, probably take everything you can get at gyms, but just realize that that's an unprofitable way to do it, right? If you're doing everything from paver patios to artificial turf to installing new sod and soil, and then you're going to expect the guy to mow a lawn, like it's extremely difficult to find that labor, train that labor, and then make it efficient and not expect the complaints to be rolling in at a very high level. If you're doing, like, when I talk about a lot of stuff I'm talking about like we try to make 2 or 3 new locations that I own and never show up at. Like it has to run on systems and simplicity, right? So when I talk about that, it's not necessarily what you have to do if you're an independent owner operator there all the time to manage.
You talk about taking services out. It's defining what your business is. So if you're doing artificial turf or landscaping or turf laying or things like that, we can't do that. We're a maintenance-driven business. So that's what our business is, maintenance. Landscaping, someone else does it, because we just can't squeeze in enough time, pardon me, to service the customer to that maintenance need. So we just don't take the work.
And another thing, if I could really quickly add, sorry, I know that the whiteboard has been overused today, but one thing that is sometimes
never overused, mate.
One thing that's important, especially with mowing, but almost all our home improvement industries, is like you kind of have a spring rush, and then things kind of slow down. Like this is kind of like the natural demand curve of what we go through. So this might be like 3 months out of the year that are really busy. I think for you it's like September, October, November. Is that like your crazy time?
Yeah.
Spring rush kind of thing. So what we do specifically is we will only accept mowing customers and recurring maintenance during about this window of time. But then if someone asks for a project-based job, we will say, yes, we are booked out 5 months, and we will book them out during this time of the year. So that's an opportunity as well, just to balance out somewhat more your demand so there's not as much of a crazy spring rush.
Yeah, a franchisor is called banking the jobs.
Yep.
Yes, being a squirrel.
But you've got to be careful if you're banking a job on a brand new customer that you've just quoted, because mostly they'll go to someone else. It's got to be your regular customers. You're banking those jobs.
So look, for us, I start thinking about winter. Pardon me. I've been talking all day. I'm starting to lose my voice. We start banking jobs, start thinking about winter and how we're going to plan winter in March. So for winter for us, it's always been our busiest time. We get massive growth in winter, and we're really steady and we're full. And come towards the end of winter, I start to panic that we're not going to get through it. And then I dislike spring because it's just crazy busy, and you can't control it as much, and you're really running around a bit like a headless chook sometimes, trying to stay on top of everything. Whereas winter, you start planning, I call it squirreling away, because that's what the person who taught me about this, and winter. And we're up 30% on last winter this year. And it's good gardening, profitable work in the business.
Yep. I don't bank jobs at all. I just thought I'd put that out there. Never once have I ever thought about doing that. Always do the job straight away as soon as I possibly can. And if I need more work throughout winter, I will market like crazy. I won't stop. So I will never bank a job.
Yeah, I've lost a few jobs because I banked them. And the clients just petered off. They weren't regulars. They were after a gardener and they were happy to bank the job, but then they stopped responding, etc. And I lost quote jobs that I could have done because my franchisor had suggested to bank and just concentrate on the mowing right now. So I lost those ones, and so then in hindsight, some of those ones where they're not regular, I'm not seeing them every month in those touch points. I've just gone, you know what, I've got opportunity to do you on the weekend, I'll get that done, and then build and build and build on that customer and condition them that, hey, I do have time for you, but it'll be at the end of the week or it'll be in next month's calendar, etc. But you don't know unless you're really getting that feel point from that customer.
You can't do it with new customers. It's got to be regulars. But let's say you've had regulars going on for 3 or 4 years. You're nearly doing winter pruning without them even, they're not even asking. It's because they're so used to you doing it in the winter. So, and there comes spring. So I never understand why we get this influx in spring. Everyone the first sunny day starts wanting to get all the garden. They go to Bunnings, they go everywhere. Wouldn't you want to do it in the middle of winter and the first 20-degree day, you're sitting on your deck at about 3:30, open a nice cold, putting a barbie on a Saturday and enjoying yourself instead of in the rat race of the world. So, but once you get that customer up and running, it's hard to, you can't bank the new ones, but you just program. It's more not banking, it's programming when the work's being done. So you get this nice smooth amount. Yeah.
I did instead of Christmas in July special, I did a spring in July special for some of my customers and said like 40% off green waste. I don't know what my green waste price is. And so it was already high anyway. And I've got all these jobs, they're like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Get my spring stuff done now. And I know it's going to grow 1 foot on their depostrums in spring at any rate, so at least I'm getting in early and then I can come back to them with, oh, let's make that neaten up for spring as well. So just getting that extra work out of it.
Yeah, if you come to banking jobs too, we will not put a job on the schedule if they don't pay for it. So if they're going to book out 4 months from now, we'll say, great, we'll put you on the schedule as soon as you pay for it. So even if it's a $10,000 project, we'll make that happen.
Full payment.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Question on mine is franchisees, what made you go down the employment path as opposed to splits, and have you done splits?
So for me, splits are usually, if you're splitting with territory, you usually split for 8 times cut value. But that's on average, I believe. I would rather go do that property 8 times and keep that customer and continue to do them. So that's why I won't do splits.
My honest answer, my first employee fell on my lap. A guy with 30 years experience left his job, who was my best mate, and I thought, hello, why would I not do this? This guy's, I don't know nothing, and I've gone, we haven't got enough work, but who cares? This opportunity is never going to arise. And that's how the business just evolved. It was just a sheer accident.
Yep.
Just in the right place at the right time.
Another one for Mike. So Mike, this actually for me. What motivates you, mate? Because you're 26 years old, you've got 100 franchisees already. Obviously, if you want to retire, you probably could sell up and get out. So what motivates you, and where are you, what's your vision for yourself and your business in, let's say, 15, let's say 20 years? What do you hope to be doing with your brand?
You know what you're going to be doing in 15 or 20 years? Yeah, so like my ultimate goal for Augusta is we do want to go public eventually. So we have a bunch of software, web design, tech that we're working on, and then along with the franchising, we would, in 20 years, like 2040, we want to go public. But you know, in terms of motivation, like I think there's no right or wrong way to grow your business. I think it's a matter of like work your way backwards. It's so important. Like you cannot come to an event like this and be like, I'm going to build $1 million business. No, like, do you want $1 million business? Is it going to serve you well? Is it going to be good for your family? Like that's really important. Like I don't have a girlfriend. I don't do anything on the weekend. I don't spend time with family. I don't do any of that stuff. I work out and I work. That's it. And so if that's not going to serve you well, then you shouldn't do it. And so, you know, it's just a matter of, I'm a big fan of being out of balance. So, like if you want to make progress, like if you're trying to run, you're constantly out of balance in order to run. In order to make progress, I feel like you have to have some sort of out of balance. And so some of you might be judged for that, especially at the beginning couple of years of your business. And it's normal because you're trying to grow a business. Like that's not a normal, doesn't fall in your lap. You have to get out of balance for a couple years to grow a business. And then, you know, in 5-10 years, you might talk to me and I have a family and I'm like, forget work. I'll work 10 hours a week and just spend time with my family and I'll be completely out of balance that direction, right? So I'm a big believer if you want to make quick, fast action and progress, you got to get out of balance. And so that's the story of my life.
You have to, you got to come out of your comfort zone. It's going to be hard work. You're going to push, you're going to work. Why is it when people work really hard, people go, you work too hard? If I went down to you played golf and he played every day and he got down to scratch, did anyone ever say to you, stop playing golf, mate, you're going to kill yourself?
Unfortunately, so yeah,
No one said that.
some people did.
But when you go to work and
Honestly,
you push yourself hard,
Yeah.
they go, you're working too hard.
Right.
Oh, hang on. So if I'm going to the golf course every day, that's not work?
Right.
Or that's not pushing myself to the limit? So we have this, society has this funny way of thinking about what work is. And you talk about what motivates you. Success. But what is success? It's not necessarily monetary value. It's building something that you're really proud of. The money's that's just something that's the end goal. I don't really think about it. I'm building something successful that can carry on for another generation maybe. That my son can take over. He's 23 years of age. So that will be for me success. Okay, so yeah, but don't be afraid. You're going to have to throw yourself out of balance. Huge amounts if you're going to employ people because you're going to have to go and do quotes and all sorts of things outside of hours and work like a lunatic. And people will say to you, work too hard. And I don't get that because if you were endeavouring in your sport or whatever, they never question that. It's a strange philosophy society.
I was talking with the media team because they're like the highlight of the show today. And I was talking to Greg specifically because he wants to start, you don't mind me saying this, do you? He wants to start his own franchise. And so, and what he said was like super key, I think. And he said that the reason what he finds is that he loves video and editing and all the rest of it because he does it as a job, he doesn't no longer enjoy it when he goes home and does it himself. The thing that he used to be passionate about has become a job. And so I think what's really important is the fact that anything you love right now, you wish you could do all day long and if you did it all day long, it would become a job. It'd become work, right? And so I think if you can find a business that you're so passionate about, you want to do it every single day and it doesn't seem like work, you won the game. That is success, right? In my mind, success is contentment. And so if you're content, that's not complacency, but if you're content, you've won the game. I don't care if your business is 100,000, 10,000, $1 million, 10 million, doesn't matter. If you can be content with what you have, you've won the game. You're beating 90% of people out there that just aren't content.
That's it. If you're happy, who cares?
Yeah.
That's it. It really is. I really don't think we put enough emphasis on that as human beings. If we're happy, it doesn't matter whether we're driving a Lamborghini or a Hyundai. We're happy. We're going places.
I would just like to add, not every day I'm motivated. Like a lot of times I go into like
Man,
this.
What are you doing?
Yeah. A lot of days I just wake up and I go, oh God, here we go. Let's get it done. But I think that I've got myself in a rhythm. I've got a consistent rhythm that I do every day, and that's what I do all day, every day. And I don't want to put myself out of whack with that. It feels weird if I put myself out of whack with that. So not every day am I going, I'm super motivated to do this. Like some days I'm like, screw this, man. Like, come on. I just want to go and have a few beers with the boys. No, I think that my consistency from my rhythm of doing it every day is what keeps me going nonstop to see, you know. But obviously I do have motivations that are the reason why I do it, but not every day am I chirping. I'm like, God, yeah, you know, I can't wait for this. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Jesus, Mike, he needs to stop drinking Red Bulls. He's up and about every day.
Question What was your biggest hurdle with the initial hire of your first employee? Is there anything you wish you had done differently? The very first hire.
No, not really, because mine was perfect. It helped me to develop my skills.
Well, I hired my younger brother.
Who doesn't talk anymore?
Yeah, who I don't talk to anymore. So I should have probably hired the other brother.
I was joking around.
Yeah, no, I don't talk to him. All that. It wasn't because of business though. But no, that was probably a bit of a regret there.
My first employee actually actually a bit of an interesting story. So it was a friend of mine, crazy hard worker. He had moved from Idaho, which is like next state over from Washington, right? And out from the bush, he was just like a crazy hard worker. Came to work with me, and I offered him at the time $17 an hour was a lot in our market, right? We're talking years ago, right? $17 an hour was a lot. Well, we start growing the first couple of years. We're starting to grow pretty quick. We have maybe 3, 4, 5 employees in that second year, and he wants to leave. And at the time, I was in that financial stress part, right? You don't have a lot of money. You're putting every single dollar back into the business. And so he's leaving, and I offered him $25 an hour. And I honestly don't even know how I could have afforded it. It was stupid money at the time. But I knew I needed him, and he was an incredible employee. Just like could outwork 2 of me, no problem. And what was so interesting, the psychology of how an employee thinks, is he actually took that as an insult. Because he's like, you're going to pay me more now. Well, what about the past year and a half that I've been paid 17? So is it only because I'm leaving that you're going to offer me more money? I didn't even think about that. And so from then on, that's when like P for P became so important to me, because I'm like, he deserved more money. He worked his brains out, but I didn't have a system in place to compensate someone who did that compared to the guy who worked right next to him and made $2 less an hour. Like, he produced twice as much. He deserved the money. And so from that moment was when I was like, if I can just figure out something around performance pay instead of dollars per hour, which is so messed up. Like, how is it even fair that someone who works their brains out makes $2 or $3 more per hour than the guy that just kicks along for the ride with their phone all day long? Like, that's not fair. Like, and then we wonder why employees get unhappy or disillusioned or go into a job. Like, yeah, I didn't have a system in place. Shame on me. So.
Anyone else have any questions for the panel before we leave? Cool. Well, thanks, guys. We'll leave it there. Thank you. Yeah, so thank you everyone for your attention today. This replay we'll hopefully get it ready by next week, and we'll email it to everyone as well. If you're wondering about Donna's slides especially, please email national@gyms.net. But we'll make sure that we can get those slides and whatever's been presented up here to you as well. Thank you so much for your attention today for the first one of these. Hopefully we can do it again next year and actually have one of you guys or a couple of you guys up here talking as well. Big thanks again to all of our panel, especially Mike as well, who is our international guest as well. So thank you very much, guys.